and this is the Age Group Multisport Podcast with me, Richard Conway. This is a platform for age group multisport athletes to showcase their journeys. Welcome along to another episode of the Age Group Multisport Podcast. Thank you once again for taking your time out and giving us a listen. Much appreciated. Hope you're all doing well, and if you've been racing, I hope you've had good races. We are coming towards the end of the season now for, triathlon especially. Duathlons, they run a little bit longer due to the lack of swimming. But yeah, the season's winding down. I do hope you've had a good one and you've achieved everything that you wanted to achieve. And if not, there's always next year. And as we're stepping into autumn and then heading into winter, it's time to start that base training and building for next year and planning for next year as well. So there's always something to look forward to. So since the last time we were on the podcast, we're continuing to train, getting ready for our duathlon in 2 weeks' time at Darley Moor. So far staying injury free, touch wood. I've done another couple of homemade duathlons and they're going okay. Hard as hell, but yeah, enjoying those, and fitness is coming back and the speed's coming up, so that's good. I've started riding with our local cycle club, which are the Brown Cow Buckaroos. Hello if anybody's listening from the Brown Cow Buckaroos. I've ridden with them a couple of times now, group rides. Yeah, most enjoyable. Forgot how fun that the group riding was. Been listening to a few podcasts as usual, and a few of them worth mention. Was another Tri-Dot podcast, and that one was about weight and performance, which was quite interesting. And they were talking about being too heavy or being too light. So that might be worth anybody interested in that might be worth a listen. And also I was listening to the Simon Ward podcast, and he had the Welsh triathlete on, Dominic Coy, who got a silver in the Commonwealth Games as part of the Welsh team. So that was good. That was a good one. I hadn't really heard of Dominic before, but seems like a really nice guy. He's actually from Leeds. He was born in England, but he's Welsh heritage, so that's how he got to race for Wales with non-Stanford. So yeah, that's a good podcast to listen to if you want to head over there. And the final one was a podcast called the Huberman Lab. This is a podcast put together and presented by Dr. Andrew Huberman, and he's a professor of neurobiology and ophthalmology at Stanford School of Medicine. And he generally talks about neuroscience and how our brain and its contents with the organs of our body control our perceptions, behaviours and our health. And on this particular podcast that I was listening to recently, it was about the effect of alcohol. Really, really interesting podcast. So after listening to this podcast on alcohol, I thought I would do a social experiment on myself. And the experiment is going to be, can I drink socially without consuming alcohol? Because alcohol's extremely bad for you. It's a poison. And who wants to poison themselves? And I've been drinking, I'm now 50 odd, and I've been drinking for quite a considerable amount of time, on and off. I'm not a heavy drinker. We'll have the odd bottle of wine, and I usually only drink red wine or the odd pint of Guinness. And it is literally socially, usually a bit heavier when the boys come home, to be fair, but I do enjoy it. Not getting away from that. But I thought, would I be able to do this social experiment and cut alcohol out? So that was going to be the first part for me. Cut alcohol out completely. Still drink socially, but it would be non-alcoholic. And the opportune moment came this weekend just gone, when we had friends round and they were coming round for a meal and drinks as usual. And so we'd already got a bottle of non-alcoholic red wine in the house. So when they came into the house, I was drinking a glass of red, and they went on alcohol drinks. I think one had beer and the other one was drinking fizzy wine. But Mrs. C had bought me some non-alcoholic beer also. So while our guest was drinking alcohol bottled beer, I was drinking non-alcoholic bottled beer. And it was never questioned. Nothing was ever said. I don't think they even realised, to be honest. So that part of my experiment, from a social perspective, it didn't alter the night at all, and benefits were had for me the next morning because I felt perfectly fine, not dehydrated, not hungover, which can sometimes be the case if I'm being honest. No, absolutely fine. So that part has been ticked off. So what I want to do is continue this and see how far I can go. And they reckon it's going to take 2 months for getting all of the alcohol out of your system completely, and then you should start feeling better. So I'm going to give it a go. Let's see. Watch this space and see what happens. But I do urge you to go over and listen to the Uberman podcast on alcohol and just have a listen and see what your perspective is on. I think the problem is it's such a socially accepted thing to do now. It's very difficult to change, isn't it? Something that we've all been brought up doing. It's quite a task to stop it. But as the non-alcoholic drinks are getting more and more popular and better and tastier to drink, I don't know, maybe we'll change. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see how far this thing goes. But from what I've drunk so far, the beers, the wine needs improving, and especially the gin. The gin was pretty good, actually. So there are options out there for us. So, yeah, interesting stuff. And lastly, my son passed over a book to me that I've just picked up, and it's a book called Dare to Change Your Life, and it's by the world cruiserweight champion Lawrence Okolie. And if for those who don't follow boxing, he's a boxer. And I'd heard his story before, actually. He was watching the Olympics at his work, which at the time, in 2012, he was working at McDonald's in London, and he just happened to go on his break, and he was watching Anthony Joshua, the world heavyweight champion now. At the time, he was watching Anthony Joshua box for the Olympic gold medal, and that changed his life. He decided to quit his job and aim to also try and get to the Olympics in 4 years' time. So yeah, pretty good read so far. I'll let you know how I get on with this one. And also, just kicking off is the Tour of Britain, which stars our very own Tom Pidcock for the Ineos Grenadiers, and I'm toying with going to see the stage over in Southall near us, Nottingham, on Thursday, so might go and have a look at that. Been watching it. Well, I'm watching it as I'm recording this, watching the second stage as we speak. They've just come out of Scotland, so that's going well. That's always a good watch. Started watching the Super League Triathlon yesterday, Sunday, the first one in London, and Alex Yee was making a guest performance. It's the only one he's going to do this year, and that was entertaining. And Hayden Wild took the victory for the men, and Cassandra Beaugrand from France took the ladies. So yeah, that was some really good racing there, and it's on again next weekend. Can't remember where it's at, so looking forward to that one. And so on to this episode's guest, and we're speaking to Agegrouper, dentist, blogger, podcaster, and owner of the Wonder Clinic, Stevie Potter. And Stevie got in touch with me and said that she would like to come on and have a chat. So I did a little bit of research and found all those things out. And as I said on the podcast, I don't know how she has the time to do all the stuff that she does. But it was a really nice chat. She's got a really nice background story. She said it's not inspiring, but like everybody that's been on the podcast, she's very inspiring. Not only from what she's achieved, but also from the amount of stuff that she does. So we go into what she did growing up as usual and how she got into age group. And then we do discuss about her blog and her podcast and what all that entails. So very interesting. Like I say, she'll explain it all. She'll give all the links so you can catch up with Stevie and give her a listen as well as giving us a listen. Very worthwhile. I've been listening to a few myself. So that's it. Yeah, let's get into it and we'll see you on the other side.
Hi.
Good morning and thank you and welcome to the Age Group Multisport podcast.
Thank you. I just got back from a swim. Well, I just got back from a swim, but I didn't have a chance to make myself a cup of tea, so I'm a bit dishevelled, but never mind.
Oh, well, we'll just take a minute. We'll just calm down. We'll breathe. And then we'll enjoy the podcast.
Yes.
Well, you're a pro at this.
Well, yeah. You know. I mean, I just like to talk. I think that's you like to be a pro at podcasts. It just means you like to talk a lot, right?
Yeah. Well, not so much in my case. I like other people to talk a lot. So you're going to be my perfect guest.
Fair enough.
So where are you in the world?
I am in the southwest. I'm in Somerset. I'm about half an hour from the Jurassic Coast. So we're just on the border between Devon, Dorset and Somerset and the Blackdown Hills. So we've got levels on one side for like flat riding, and then the rest of the time is just super hilly all of the time. So there is no flat running around here. No flat runs happen. But we've got a lovely coast to swim in as well, which is great. We're not a million miles away from Exmoor either, which is cool.
Fantastic.
So yeah. Nice.
Well, hills are our friends. So,
yeah, cool. It's one of those things like whenever I get to a race and anyone's moaning about hills, I'm always like, what hill? This is like the driveway.
Yeah. Cool. Well, like I say, thank you ever so much for agreeing to come on and spend your time on it, especially on a bank holiday Monday. Well, I'm sure
when you're self-employed, there's no bank holidays because you just work all the time, right? So
yeah. So just give us a little bit about your background, like growing up as a kid, sporting activities and things. That's what we all usually kick off with. So
yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people where I wasn't actually really sporty as a kid. So I did horse riding and karate and like outdoorsy things and to kind of let go of all my energy and everything. But I never did like running or, you know, track sports, anything like that. In fact, I was so bad at running. I had a lot of testing just to check I was okay and I had no issues because I was really, really bad. But yeah, I just always had loads of energy and stuff. So I was always like doing stuff, but I was really academic. And then I didn't get into sport really until I was probably, I think at uni, because I joined the rowing team because they were looking for coxes, and you know I'm very short and very loud and very bossy, so that's appropriate job for me. And I remember going home one term, probably from my first year, and Dad being like, "You know what? You look like maybe you are enjoying the good life and you need to do a bit more exercise." So I took up running because that was free. I wasn't very good at it, but I was like, "Well, I'll give it a go because it's free and I'm a student. I'm really poor." And then joined the rowing team, and in order to get the good boats to Cox, it was like, well, you have to go and do all the land training because, you know, build all the rapport with the crew and stuff. So I was like, right, well, I'll never want to be beaten. I'll go and I'll do all the cardio they're doing and I'll hang out in the gym. And I think I remember the first time I did like an hour's worth of cardio in the gym, and I was like super proud of myself. Like, I've just done an hour on one piece of kit. Aren't I a hero? But yeah, so I wasn't really sporty, I don't think, as a kid. I did do sport, but not like running, swimming or cycling. I learned to swim by falling off the end at the beach, like at Burton Bradstock. But that was about it. So yeah, came to me a bit later in life.
Well, but you were still active though, like you say, you were doing other stuff, weren't you? You know, swimming, biking and run isn't the be all and end all for everybody. It's just, it is what we do now. So yeah, you still did stuff.
Yeah. It's all, I think you have one of those personalities when you get into triathlon, whatever age you come to it, is you're always somebody that likes movement and you like to be kind of on the go and doing stuff and channeling some energy somewhere and letting it go, I think.
I guess training with those guys or girls, was it, when you were rowing? Was it
Yeah.
guys or girls?
So I did a bit of both. So
Right.
first year I did a little bit with the novice women, and then I was mainly with the novice men's crew. And
Yeah.
then as I went into senior ranks, we tried to kind of have boys with boys and girls with girls, just because it seemed to work a bit better. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
coxed the senior women because it was just nice then, because you're hanging out with a crew of 8 girls.
Yeah.
It's nice to then have also a girl coxing you. I just think the dynamic's a bit better. So I
Yeah.
did a little bit of both.
Yeah, so but I bet that trying to keep up with those guys in the gym and stuff give you a great base level for your fitness and things.
Yeah, it was always one of those things like you either had super, super tall people and then really, really tiny people all just hanging out together in the gym.
Yeah,
And I was never very good on the erg, but I gave it a good go. I think they appreciated that. I hope they appreciated that.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure you inspired them in some ways.
Well, I like to think so. I think there's nothing worse than for them, like if they were going to get in a boat and have somebody shouting and barking orders at them, like particularly when you cross the finish line in some of the longer head racing, you get over the finish line and all the umpires are like, you've got to keep going. So you've got like another minimum 20 strokes to get over the line and get out of the way. And you've got somebody sat at the end of the boat going, no, you can't stop, even though you've just given 100% to the line. Like that, don't let that be a person that doesn't go into training and do the same. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cool. So how did you like get into multi-sport then after that?
Well, that's like a typical kind of runner story. Like, was doing running, and I wanted to, because I was in Newcastle when I was training. So,
Whereabouts in Newcastle were you?
so we lived in right by the university because I was at dental school there. So, I forget the name, Claremont Road we were in, which was like literally by the city.
Okay.
I lived in Jesmond for a year before that, which is where all the students hang out.
Yeah. Well, my wife was at university up many moons ago, and I lived up there as well for a while. And we lived in Heaton, which was a bit further out.
Yeah.
We had great memories of Newcastle.
It was a brilliant city. I remember getting lost on some long runs when I was training to do the Great North Run, and I literally ran through like all of the suburbs, like Heaton, Jesmond. I can't remember what the other one was.
Biker.
There was like yeah. Oh yeah, I worked in Biker for a bit as well. That was a strange place.
Very strange. Yeah, I went to a gym in Biker. Were very odd.
yeah. Biker was a weird place. I ran quite fast through Biker.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to hang around there.
But yeah, so we were what was I saying? We were
running. Yeah, you got
about
into
running.
doing some running, weren't you? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was it. So I was training for the Great North Run because we were in Newcastle, and Claremont Road was like right where the Great North Run started. And I remember one day we were in the house, and we'd been on a night out the night before, and all of this kind of noise started, and I was like, what the heck is that? I look out the window, and the Great North Run was just happening on my street, and I was like, oh, okay, I'd maybe do that one year. So I started training for that, and I think that was like second or third year at university, and then I got quite a bad knee injury. It was acute, it didn't last after that, but it was bad enough that I couldn't run, and I got a bit like, oh, well, what am I going to do now? Because running was the thing that I could do and I was doing okay at. And then Dad was like, why don't you, like, I found these magazines about this sport called triathlon, and you get 2 other sports for the price of one. So if you do that, maybe then if you get injured, you'll still have 2 other things to do. And I was like, yeah, okay, that seems all right.
I've
done like, yeah. And I've done like, living around here, because I grew up around where I am now as well. That I'd just been out on my mountain bike all the time, because that's how you got anywhere. Like you couldn't walk anywhere because everywhere's so far
you were
apart.
used to biking.
Exactly. So I'd never ridden a road bike, but I was like, well, I'll probably be all right at that. I can now run a bit and I can swim a bit. Like I'm not a very good swimmer, but there's a swimming pool, so I'll learn. And so then I think my first multi-sport event was actually a duathlon in 2012. So yeah, 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I went off so I did it from university. It was in Durham. And I remember getting on the first train, earliest train I could get in the morning, because obviously I didn't have a car or anything. And I jumped off the train, and I was probably like half an hour from start time. And I knew it was going to take me like maybe 20 minutes to get there. So I absolutely burnt it off the train, got to the start line, and Durham's like that, like up and down, up and down.
Yeah.
So I burnt it to the start line. I was pretty cream crackered when I got there.
Good warm up.
And then I did that classic thing that I'm not even going to say all novices do, because I think we all do it even when we've been in triathlon a long time, is go out way too fast. Did the first 5K and was like, yep, I feel great. Got on the bike, no problem, real hilly course, but enjoyed it. And then I got to the second run and I thought I was going to die, and it was awful. And it was still really hilly and off-road. And then I got a second in my category. So I got a little trophy and shoved it in my back pocket, and off I went. That was it.
Yeah. Cool. So. Good start. That inspired you to do more.
Well, yeah, I was like, do you know what? That was quite good fun. And I like this whole age category thing, because in the age category thing, I've got a trophy on my first one. That's really cool. So I quite like that, because I'm quite pleased,
Yeah.
So yeah, that seemed like a good idea.
Yeah, well, it obviously was, because here we are 10 years later.
Yeah, and I'm still doing the age category thing.
Yeah, only a bit more,
Yeah, I mean, I've got a blue tracksuit and stuff now, but apart from that, it's all the same, isn't it?
It is all the same. Yeah, it is all the same. I think that's a great mindset to have, actually. Most people do get het up about it. Anyway, we're jumping ahead a bit there. So you did your first duathlon, and then did you get, that was it? Was there anything at university that got you into multi-sport, or did they have a club, or was there anything? Was triathlon a thing then there?
Yeah, well, I think because I was hanging out with these weird rowing people, and rowers are a really odd breed of people, because you think triathletes are serious about what they do. Like, rowers eat, sleep, breathe rowing, because you have to, it's so different. It's a bit like swimming, being on the water in a boat is completely alien. It's not like anything you do on land. Like running, if you're standing and walking around, you're kind of training for it. Rowing is just a completely different kettle of fish. So there's a lot of training, and you have to be really focused around it. And you're kind of in this world of people that just loves sport and endurance, and they work really, really hard, and they eat a whole lot malt loaf as a snack. Like, that's the kind of world I was in. So, and then these guys were kind of like in their spare time to keep up the fitness. They're all cycling. They're all doing road cycling. They weren't great runners, so I could definitely keep up with them on the run and show them how that was done. But then they started to, a few of them like, oh, this summer we're going to go and do like an Ironman. And I was like, I don't know what that is. What's an Ironman? Like, what's that? And they just went out. I think one of the guys lived in Switzerland, around a lake there. And then they went out there, did a swim in there, had a little break, then went and did the 112-mile bike. And I was like, what? That's completely nuts. But yeah, maybe triathlon, maybe that's a good way to get fit, because it's clearly working for you guys. You're really good rowers, and I'm not. So maybe I should try that. And I was just surrounded by people that were running and cycling. Yeah. And the swimming was then the thing that facilitated that. Like, if you're going to do triathlon, you better go and learn to swim a bit better. So, and we had access to a really nice pool in the city. Because that was a nice thing about Newcastle, is it was set up for sport. Like, there was anything you wanted to. If you went over to Gateshead, there was a track and an athletic stadium and everything. Like, anything you wanted was just there. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah,
cool. So you found out about, your dad helped you find out about multi-sport and triathlon. So when did you do your first triathlon? Because you did your duathlon first in 12. So what was your first triathlon?
I think it would have been probably the same year, and I flew home for summer, and I did one round here, which would have been the Trowbridge Triathlon.
Right.
And that was the first one that I did. And I was a bit like, I remember thinking, I've just got to survive the swim, because I haven't really done that before. I don't know how this works. I remember having a deep-seated fear that I had no idea how I was going to get out of the swimming pool, because it was like one of them really high-sided ones, and I'm really short. And I was like, how am I going to get out? And I remember like getting out and just throwing myself onto the side, commando roll style. Like, I'm out of the pool. I did it.
Yeah. Now let's have some fun.
Yeah. And I was like, I know I can cycle now. And I think I had some shorts that were like out of a bargain bin in one of the sports shops in Newcastle for a tenner, which I still have now, which have been relegated to the turbo for emergency purposes. And I think I had an old, like, slightly baggy lycra vest. And I thought, well, I'll just wear it all in the swim, because I don't want to be cycling my bike in a swimming cozy. That seems like a bad idea. So I just wore all that. I think I had some old sunglasses that maybe used to belong to my mum. And the bike I'd bought in, so I'd bought that literally the previous year. So not long before I'd done the duathlon. And I'd saved up all of my Christmas money. And then I managed to go down to the shop and sort of like strike a deal with the guy, and he got me like an old kind of previous season's old bike. And he said, you know, you can have it all for like the helmet, the shoes, the bike, the pedals, everything. And I think I managed to get it all for about 750 quid. Which was a good deal. Like even back then, it wasn't bad. I was quite pleased with myself. And I went straight into cleats as well, because I was like, wow, you know, go all in. I've got grass I can practice on. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, that's it, isn't it? It's just about practicing.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone goes in, oh, I should start on flat pedals. And I'm like, no, because then you get used to flat pedals. Just go into cleats. If you fall off, you fall off. You're not going to hurt yourself, like just coming off at slow speed.
Like you said, if you do it on grass, then, you know, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. And it's funny. It's funny when you fall off your bike like that.
Not so funny at the moment. My wife just fell off her bike and she's got a broken wrist.
That's not funny. That's like
funny.
A higher speed. That's not on grass practicing with cleats. Yeah, that's not great.
Not great. So even after with her 10 years, she's been doing multi-sport, it still happens, unfortunately.
It does. And unfortunately, I think the more experience you get, the more it hurts when you come off, because you're usually going a bit faster.
Oh no, she was just getting back on a bike, to be honest.
Oh no.
But there you go.
Maybe
these
not
things
then.
happen. Yeah. But to her credit, it was on a bit of a incline and very gravelly, so just one of those things.
But we've all come off coming uphill.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. You're not a proper cyclist if you haven't come off when you stood still or. So so that was your first triathlon. So how did it develop after that? Did you join a club, or what was the?
No, I never really joined a club. So I went back to university again. I think I was in my final year. And so I had like another 6 months to do. So I went back there, had a good time. And then because I moved back to the Southwest after that, like it's a playground here for triathletes, because you've got all of that cycling and running and swimming territory. So I think I then decided I was going to do the London Marathon. Right. And I think I'd also decided that I'd been reading these magazines that my dad had got me. So I had a few copies of 220 lying around, because that's what dad had bought me, and that's how I learned about triathlon, was reading that magazine. And so that's how I found out a bit more about Ironman. And I was like, right, it seems like in triathlon, if you're going to do it, you've got to do it. It seems like that's what you should do. So I'm going to plan to maybe do that before I'm 30. I'll give that a go. So I was like, no, that'll give me a few years worth of fun, because I've got to get up all the distances, do open water, and that'll occupy me. So I came back, moved back down here, and I thought, well, the first thing I've got to do is I've got to run a marathon. So I'm going to run a marathon. I should do the London Marathon, because that's the one that everybody does, right? I don't know anything about it. So I think somebody spotted me in the gym not long after I'd moved back down here, and it was a different area to where I'm originally from. So I'm from a town a few miles down the road. So I didn't really know anyone. And he was like, oh, I noticed that you're in here doing a lot of running and cycling and stuff. And then he kind of introduced me to the local running club. Which I think is where really I got a lot of my stamina and a lot of the kind of friends that supported me now, was going out, and, you know, every Tuesday it'd be like, go and do 7-8 miles. And it was always like pushing the pace. And then, and they definitely helped me to get to a point where I could do a marathon. And then a few people from that club were kind of, oh yeah, we do a bit of triathlon. I was like, okay, I did one once. Like, tell me more about what you do. How do I do that around here? Which ones do you do? And they introduced me to Bustin' Skin events down in Weymouth. Okay. He put on some amazing races. And I still go back to those. I haven't been back to any this year, which is a real shame, but I love those events. And they said, you know, we go open water swimming on a Thursday for preparation for those. So we started going swimming together on a Thursday night after work. And I got like a proper wetsuit then, which I think cost me about 50 quid. And I think my first open water event was then down in Weymouth, was with Bustin' Skin. And I've gone back pretty much every year to that event since then, because I absolutely love it. And it's so nice to go back to an event that you did when you were really pants, and then go and do it and be like, I'm actually quite good at this now, all right, and still really, really enjoy it. And the people down there were amazing. So and then you just get chatting to people like, what events do you do? What races do you do? And you just kind of make friends that way. So we didn't really have like a triathlon club around here. I did try the triathlon club thing for like structured swimming. And it was just too serious for me. I was like, everyone's takes themselves too seriously here. It's not for me. So
Well, it isn't for everybody, and it depends what club you're in, because you've got, in my experience, and I've been in 2 clubs.
Yeah.
The first club, well, both clubs, we've got a wide range of ability, from complete novices that keep coming in year after year to age groupers, and everything in between. And it's, I think you're right. There are some people that do take it far too serious for their own good, really. And it can put a dampener on proceedings, because
I just thought,
they expect you to be their level.
Exactly. And it was, I think the comment that lasted with me, I think this is really important as well, is like for everybody to remember that even when you get to the level where you're doing age grouping higher up, is that you all started somewhere. And one of the comments that always stuck with me that put me off was, I went there and I'd said about this sprint race I was going to do. And, I knew I'd only done one race before, and this was only going to be my second race. And I was trying to get better at swimming. I knew that was difficult for me. And for me, it was a big thing to go and get in the pool with other people and train with them, because they were all better than me. And I remember in the showers afterwards chatting to some of the ladies, and one of them just made a flippant comment, like, asked me what my race was. And I was like, oh, I'm doing this race down in Weymouth, blah, blah, blah. It's a sprint race, blah, blah, blah. And the comment she said was, oh, well, you'll be fine. It's only a sprint. But to me, that was a really big deal, because I was like, right, okay, well, to me, it's like a massive race. And now, like, the sprint event is still my favorite distance. It's like, that's what I want to do. And for somebody to just say that because she was doing Ironman or whatever, I was like, oh, okay, I feel completely belittled. And like, I think that's really important, is what I always say to people, is you have to be aware of like where somebody else might be on their journey and how that might come across to them, because that's what puts people off getting into sport. It's like when I go to the crit races and the cycling and stuff, the more seriously you take it, the less people you will have join, because the more intimidated they feel, and that's detrimental to the entire sport. It's 100%. Really, really important.
100%. And it's funny that, because on that, it's only a sprint. I'm like you, I'll do Olympic and sprint, never done an Ironman, never done a half, not interested. It's too much effort for not enough pleasure, in my opinion. So I'm like into sprints and stuff. And it was always the case that you join the club, and that was the path. People said, well, you start off with only a sprint. And then you'll go to Olympic, and then you go to half, and then you'll go to Ironman. And Ironman is the pinnacle, and the longer distances, like, you've got that. Well, I've done an Ironman, I'll get the tattoo. Jobs. I'm a proper triathlete now. So I was so sick of hearing this. It's only a sprint. I actually got a cap made, put on it. So that was my joke to everybody else. It's only a sprint, because they all knew that I only did like sprint and Olympic distances. So I got this cap made. So. And the thing is that, yes, it's only a sprint, and it's not about the distance. It's about how much effort you put in, because you work just as hard, if not harder, on the shorter distances than you do on the longer ones.
Yeah, 100%. So, I'm going to get one of those hat made. I think that's great. I'm going to get a hat made.
I'll send you a picture of it.
Thank you.
So that does resonate with me as well, actually.
I just think, like, I've done Ironman. I did Ironman in 2018, and I did Ironman Wales, and I remember afterwards, I was just like, yeah, I've done it. I don't really want to do another one now. And everyone was like, oh, but you could do really well. And I was like, yeah, but I don't really want to do it. I've done what I want to do. Like, what's the point? I said, you have to waste all of your life. It was like 20, 25 hours a week I trained, and it was great. But I want to have a dog and a boyfriend and stuff. So
have a life.
Yeah. I don't really, I'm not getting paid to do it. So,
no,
and actually, fun. Exactly. And I was a bit broken afterwards, and I thought, I quite live in one piece.
You would be, because it's a hell of a race, isn't it? It's a hell of an achievement. I'm not saying it's not, it is a hell of an achievement, but broken. And I, to be honest, if I'm being brutally honest, I don't think my body would like cope with the training, let alone the race itself. So I'm like you, I'm very, very small. So I'm not built for that sort of thing. I mean, I've done a marathon, but I'm not built.
No, I was going to say, I think everyone said to me, oh, yeah, you're not really built for Ironman, but everyone also looks at me and goes, you're not really built for triathlon. So that doesn't really matter.
That's not fair. I don't think people who are really tall realise what the struggle is when you're so small and short.
I think that they should acknowledge that running is twice as hard, because you have to take twice as many steps, right?
100%. 100%. And not only that, it's the swimming as well, innit? Bike's a bit of a leveler, but the swimming as well. You've not got as big a levers, have you?
I can only reach to there.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. So I feel your pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did it develop then into you did your Ironman, you obviously did your marathon, did your Ironman. How did it develop into age group then? How did you find out about that?
So one of my friends, who for a while we called GB Rach because she was Rachel and she'd, was representing GB. So that was our joke, because she was GB Rach because she was the first one that had done it. Well, GB Rach is over here, serious GB Rach, because she's got in the GB squad now. And she was one of my close girlfriends, and so she'd gone off and done it. And I was like, well, I might fancy having a crack at that then, because I'm not going to do Ironman anymore. I'm not going to do that as the be all and end all. So I want to go back to sprint. I'm going to go right back to where I started. I'm just going to try and do it as fast as I can. So now I've done all the distance. How fast can I do it? And I really like it. And like I say, I want to get a dog and have a life so I can still do sprint training. So I thought, well, I think the thing to do now really is test myself against a bigger field of people, because I'd started to get better and I was starting to get on the podiums at local races, which is great. But then you start to realize it's not really about the winning stuff, because once you start to win stuff, it's a bit boring then, because if you go to an event and you're going to do really well and there's only a couple people there that's going to be competition for you, so it's going to be a bit boring. So I decided, well, I need to go to some bigger races. So I'll go to some of these qualifying events, just see where I am, thinking I'll be way down the list, and then I'll have something to build on from there. And I think I finished, and I think I finished within my category. So I must have finished 5th or 6th. So I was like, that's really good. I'm really impressed with that. And it was a draft legal event, which I'd never done before. But I thought, well, that's fine, because I'm really bossy on the bike. So I just shout at everybody. It's not a problem. And I think I've done one draft legal event actually in Mallorca, where we'd gone away for a girls' holiday and decided to do a race out there. That was fine. So I finished that and I thought, well, that's quite good. I could do all right here. And I didn't think anything of it, because I thought I'm just going to give it a go this year and see what happens. And then I was in London on a training, doing some teaching, and I'd gone out for lunch. And I remember sitting in some Japanese fast food restaurant, and I was just tapping away on my laptop. Oh, time to check the emails. And I had an email coming through going, oh, well done. You've qualified for the European Championships in 2019. And I was like, oh, this is a pleasant surprise. I feel like everything's just kind of I don't know. Everything had just kind of changed then in a minute. And I was like, oh, I feel like maybe I'm a proper athlete now. This is weird. So sort of told everyone I knew, obviously. Probably posted a snapshot on Instagram, because that's what you do. Yeah. And then obviously, I think we never got to go, because it was 2020 I'd qualified for. So it was 2019 I found out, and it was 2020. So we never got to go, because we were supposed to go to Malmo.
Okay.
And so never got to go there. And then they did so to qualify for the Worlds, you could then submit your time. So I put through my times from Eton, and then got a qualification slot for Bermuda for the World Championships as well. So it's only been the last few years. And last year was the first time I'd raced in the Europeans, and I went to Valencia because it was rolled over from 2020. Yeah. So that's how it all happened. So it feels a bit weird, because it still feels like I've only been doing it for 5 minutes, because although I got my qualification slot, 1,000 years ago, pre-COVID, I've only had 3 races. So just kind of, that was it really. And that was, and like I say, and then we went all into lockdown, and I didn't really get the opportunity to kind of go and wear my suit or anything, which was a bit weird really. So here we are now.
But the good thing is that they honoured it, and you could roll it over, and you did get to race eventually, which was really cool. So that's
it was.
Nice. And how did you find the whole experience?
Well, I think Valencia was my first experience, and I almost if I had to give any advice to anybody that's just coming into it, your first international race probably will just feel completely crazy and really stressful, because you don't really know what's going on. Everything seems way more stressful than it does at a normal race, but I think it's just because you put loads of pressure on yourself, because you're oh, I'm part of this bigger thing now. So I went to Valencia, and I think the race organization was not the best I've ever been to. I was super nervous. I'd maybe done a couple races abroad before, but nothing this kind of big. And it was hard, and I didn't probably perform as well as I wanted to, because the whole thing was just quite nerve-wracking, and we were still doing all the COVID testing and stuff as well. So we only had 4 days away because I was more focused on the Worlds, which then never happened because that was in Bermuda. So it was just kind of like, you know, testing before you go, get there, open the bike, you've got to test again before you come home, like all this kind of stuff. And it was just like bam, 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 bam. But I was really glad, because I was glad that I kind of just got that one out of the way. And I was like, I've done it once now. And now the next time I go, I'll be able to enjoy it more. So I finished 9th in my category.
Which
and
is
everyone's
good.
like, oh, yeah, they're like, oh, yeah, it's really good. You must be really happy. And I was like, I'm not really that happy, because it wasn't about, this is the thing, like whenever I race, it's not, what I've realized, it's not about the end number. It's not about the numbers that I've produced in the run. It's not about where I finished in the pack. It's about how I felt about it. And I felt like I'd had a really pants race, really awful. And I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. And I had a sponsor, who still sponsors me now. It's the Aesthetic Entrepreneurs, who I do a lot of work for in performance coaching. And they were like, oh, we're totally stoked for you. This is amazing. And I was like, yeah, but I just don't feel that great about it. Like, thanks, but I need to just decompress from it. And I kind of like went into the winter season feeling a little bit like I've got loads of work to do, because it's not the best race that I could have produced, and I didn't really enjoy it. And then this year was like a whole different kettle of fish then, because this year, even though, so we had somebody else in our house fall off and have a broken shoulder blade, right. My partner. I've had COVID. He's had COVID. I've twisted my ankle about 3,000 times. So it's not been like the easiest road, but I never see all that. And I just so I went out to Montreal this year and just had an amazing time. And the whole event was amazing. And I just enjoyed it all. And I've started now, from then, I've started, I don't race with any tech now. So I either don't have a watch on, or I've got tape over the Garmin, so I can't see it, because I realized that what I want to do is just go out and race completely organically and enjoy it, which is entirely what I've done. And I've done that this year in Munich and in Montreal. And they were some of the best races I've had, not because I produced my best performance, but because I had the best time ever, which was great. So
I think just going back to your Valencia experience, I mean, I've spoke to quite a few people who were there, and you know, they said exactly the same, and they'd done previous races.
Yeah.
And because it was like one of the first ones back after COVID, and they were still in the throes of that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the normal experience. And now you've obviously, with Montreal and Munich, you've experienced exactly what it is like, because each race we're now going forward, it's getting back to what it used to be like, what it, you know, the whole experience is how it should be. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't a really great experience for your first one, but now you know, with the fruits of your labor, you're now seeing actually what it is actually like. So yeah, so how
it's
did
nice to know that it wasn't just me that thought it wasn't so great at Valencia.
Yeah. I think it was just because of all the restrictions and everything else. Everybody felt the same.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what was Munich like?
Oh, Munich was amazing. Yeah, that was recent. That was amazing, because the thing that was amazing about Munich is you were part of this like amazing
the whole festival.
Yeah, and it was so cool. I wasn't feeling that great, so I'd not had a great stomach that week, and because I got a bit dehydrated and stuff, and so I didn't get out and do as much as I wanted to. But I managed to. I was staying not far away from the Olympic regatta lake. Yeah. So I was able to go and watch some of the rowing, which is obviously, you know, right back where I started. So that was super cool. Yeah. A little bit like just kind of nostalgic. So I went to see that. That was pretty cool. Saw a bit of the climbing as well. And yeah, it was just amazing to be part of an event. And what an amazing venue, like the Olympic Park, to be able to go and race in there. Split transition, that was a novelty. Still missing
I was speaking to one of my teammates went and I was speaking to her at the track on Saturday, and I was asking her how she, and she said it was just a nightmare trying to get everything. She was just so, I mean, she's been doing this for a long time. She's been all over the world, and she just said she was so anxious about getting everything over there and the split transitions, and she knew it was going to happen, you know, even before she went, because she was already told. But she said it just wasn't, the event itself was really good. She said, but just getting everything arranged and things just wasn't fun.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, like, one of the conversations that I always have with my coach is like, just don't worry about it. Like, it is what it is. So you get there, you know, it's going to be a split transition race. You can either then be like, oh, this is going to be terrible and the logistics are a nightmare. Or you can be like, do you know what? I've decided I love split transitions. And like, that's the mindset that I went with. It's like, just to say, I really like this now. And if I say it enough, I'll convince myself.
And as in life, you can do that with everything that comes along. You can either look at it, put a negative spin on it or a positive spin on it. And to have that mindset, especially in a pressure cooker situation like that, is just fantastic if you can do it.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, I've got to deal with it. So I can either deal with it and moan about it, or I can deal with it, laugh about it, pretend I'm enjoying it. And if I kind of try and convince myself enough, I will. And I'd gone out on my own. So it's the first time. And I've got one of the Aerofit bike boxes. And obviously I'm the size of a borrower. So like me in this bike box, trying to get it in and out of the car, I have to kind of like get people to take pity on me and help me in and out of things with it. And then, I'd got the bike through, it been fine. I've got my transfers, my thing. I was finding my way around and I was like, yeah, it's not too bad. The public transport was amazing. So that was good. And it was just one of those things where it just took a little bit of extra planning. And one of the things that I've started to do, which is really helpful, is every time before I race, I send my coach, just for like an accountability thing, from the moment I leave the house to the end of the race, I'll send him a plan, which is like, get up at this time, go whatever, which makes you think it through. So for a split transition, I'd done all the work. So I got there and I knew which buses I was going to get. I knew when I was going to need to head out there. I knew when I was going to need to have like dinner before and stuff like that, which just meant it wasn't so stressful because I just looked at my phone and went, right, I've got to be there now. So I could still go and enjoy it. And I knew where I needed to be. But it was logistically, it was different. And I would not choose to have a split transition again, given the choice.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it and you enjoyed your race, which is the most important thing when we take part. So that's really cool. So since you've been back, happening, what your next set of plans?
Real heavy focus now on the fact that we're nearly at the end of the season and I'm actually quite looking forward to it.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Because I think you need to give yourself a break, don't you?
I think I've been training like really well and really focused for a very long time. And I don't have a very long attention span. Maybe that's why sprints are good for me. I don't know. But I'm doing my first standard distance for like 4 years, maybe. I don't think I've done one since I did Ironman. So that should be interesting. So I'm going to the Bournemouth Nat Champs in a couple of weeks' time, I think. So that'll be fun. I've never done that one before. Yeah. And next weekend or this weekend coming, I've got Box End, which will be really good fun because I've got a pre-qualification slot for the Worlds next year. So it will just be nice to go to Box End and thank you. And that was unexpected. So it would just be nice to go to Box End and have a good time. And I'm probably just going to go really, really hard and see if I can hang on and then die at the end and just have a good time. So it's only 2 races left for the end of the season. And then I'm going to go and find the nearest cocktail bar and then probably just go off grid for a week.
Excellent. Great stuff. Well, that's a really nice story. Some really nice bits that people can pick through there and be inspired by.
Well, I'm not one of those people that's like, I don't think it's like a massively inspiring story. It's just like, it's normal people doing normal stuff and enjoying it. And I think that's really important. Like, that's what's important to me. And that's what I want to share with everybody else.
But I think that's the inspiration part because we're all normal people. There's no, we all, like you said earlier, we do this for fun. We've just hit it. We've just hit a level with a bit of work and effort and a bit of cunning. So anyone can do it if they choose to, but it's giving people that inspiration to be able to do it. And that's why I like doing this podcast, to try and do that. So now we'll go on to the quick fire questions.
Oh no. Okay.
There's nothing sinister or anything in it. Basically, just a few questions. And the first one is, would you give to anybody wanting to get into triathlon or multi-sport, really?
Just be brave. Just try it. Just like, don't worry about it. Everyone overthinks stuff. Just go and do it. Just go. Just do it.
Good advice. I like it. Short and to the point.
Well, it's a quick fire question, right? So the short advice is just go and do it.
Well, the answers don't have to be quick fire. So the next one is, what's your favourite bit of kit?
Oh, that's hard because I get very excited about any new bits of kit that I get. What's my favorite bit of kit? I'm trying to think. Oh, actually, I think my favorite bit of kit is something I got recently, which is my little balance pods for feet.
Okay.
And they're like little hedgehog things. And they're great because my ankles have got like old granny ankles at the moment because they're scared of any uneven tarmac now. And so I set them up around the kitchen, and that means I have to do stepping stones across the kitchen. It's great for mobility. It's really good fun. Makes me better at running, and the dog can join in as well. So that's good. And they were like £5. So
like it. Not had that one on before. I've had some obscure ones on, like a hole punch, but never never that one. Cool. So what resources do you use to help you in your training or whatever, multi-sport?
So my coach, who I've been working with for about a year now, is obviously my most important resource, which is Alan at Try Training Harder. They're an amazing company. They've helped me a lot. Training camps and stuff like that as well. Obviously Training Peaks, obviously. But yeah, I don't have a massive reliance on tech. I think the biggest resource you can use is your brain, possibly a pen and paper, and somebody that you can talk to objectively. I think those are the resources that you need to help you with your training. I think people focus too much on like, oh, I need this split and I need these numbers. And like, no, you need to go and do the work consistently, and you need to enjoy it, and you need to have somebody to kind of give you good talking to when you're being a bit negative and stuff. So yeah.
Brilliant. Great answer. Love that one. Yeah, love it. And you've just answered my other one. I was going to ask you, are you coached? But of course you are. You've just told me.
Yeah.
So that's that one ticked off. Short-term and your long-term goals. Well, you've pretty much told us your short-term at the end of the season, but if there's anything else you can add, please do so now.
No, short-term is just to go out and see how fast and smashy I can be at box end, really. Longer-term goals I haven't really thought about because it's been a bit of a changeable year. So you know what? We'd all like to get on the podium in our GB kit, wouldn't we? I'd love to do that. I don't know how achievable that is, but I'd love to do it in the longer term. Maybe, don't know, maybe it'll be a different distance. Who knows? But yeah, I'd like to do that probably. And then I think I'd also like to way in the future, maybe when I get bored of sprint, I'll maybe go and do some extreme triathlons like Norseman or something. Because I don't like to do just the flat stuff, and so I'd like to go and do interesting stuff.
Yeah. Well, that Norseman's a brute, isn't it? And one
of the guys, a friend's just done it, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, maybe I'll put that on the bucket list.
Yeah, well, one of the guys I had on the podcast in the early days, Jules, he's just done it.
That is the friend I'm talking about.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So yeah. So I mean, I follow him on Instagram, obviously, and I was watching his journey, and it's like,
Yeah. Did you get a little bit of a taste though? Did you go, I kind of want to do it?
You know, I've not really. I've listened to a few people who've done it in the past. Louise Minchin being one of them.
Yeah.
A few of her podcasts and stuff, and it does intrigue me, but I just don't think I could stand the cold, to be honest.
That's the only thing that puts me off. So maybe I'll find an extreme one to do, like in Patagonia or something, rather than the Norseman.
Yeah, somewhere warm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So that's brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your Wonder Clinic?
Let
us. Well, first of all, because obviously you do your Wonder Clinic, you've got your blog and you've got your podcast, and also you've got your day job. I don't know how you fit it all in. So tell us a little bit about I don't know, whichever one. Well, not your dentistry, because that's your job.
But
boring. The other three, how did they all come about, and what?
Yeah, so
in what order?
I started a business it was actually in aesthetics, which was what the Wonder Clinic was originally. And people were coming into me and asking a lot about lifestyle advice for like health in terms of skincare and that. And then we just got a lot of my clients were really active. A lot of them were athletes. We started talking about lifestyle stuff. They would always say exactly that. You're really busy. How are you running a business, being a dentist, being an athlete at the same time? And the people I was working with, a lot of them just started approaching me and saying, look, I think that you can help me to achieve what I want to achieve. So a lot of it was about lifestyle and health and wellness and stuff like that. You clearly are doing what you're doing and really enjoying it. Like, teach me to do the same. So people started approaching me. And then what I realized was I was starting to do more and more of that kind of one-to-one coaching on people's lifestyle. And less time was then available to do the other business on a Saturday. So I sold my aesthetics clinic, and now I work as a performance coach. So I help entrepreneurs, business people, age group athletes. I help some ex-professional athletes as well on the kind of next stage of their life. So depending on what those people are doing, for entrepreneurs, for example, who are the main group of people that I work with, really focused individuals. But the one thing that they fall down on is they're completely focused on the business, and they're not focused on how important they are and how integral they are to that. And this is about saying, you know what, if you think about what you're eating and you look after yourself, and that's not difficult either. And if you learn to love movement and learn to look after your body, and that's not difficult either. And you learn how to manage your time properly and set your goals properly. And, you know, all these things that are actually quite easy when you kind of unravel them, but people don't think about enough, like teaching people how to do that. And that's what performance coaching is for me. So it's all sorts of different people, but it's people who are really busy, really focused on what they want to achieve, and they've got big dreams, but they're maybe not focusing on the right things, feeling a little bit overwhelmed, feeling stressed. And so at the Wonder Clinic, what we do is just help people to unravel that, get rid of this overwhelm, and then, yeah, just enjoy it and understand that life is about enjoying the process and not about getting to a point. So it's all sorts of elements, nutrition coaching, like I say, life coaching, that kind of thing, all wrapped up into performance coaching for lots of different people who are all very driven. And like I say, we've got quite a few athletes and stuff as well, and some ex-professional. We've got quite a lot of ex-professional rugby players who are kind of settling into life and going, I don't know how to not be a rugby player anymore. So stuff like that, which is what we do now.
Cool. So how did the blog come about and the podcast come about?
So the blog and the podcast just came about from, okay, I've got loads of stuff I want to say, and I think people need to hear it. So people were like, you've got stuff you need to share, like put it out there. You're really good at talking. So one of the other things that I do a lot of related to my performance coaching is I do a lot of speaking. So conferences, Zoom stuff, just speaking to people. And again, I got into that through my sponsor, who wanted me to go and speak at conferences and things like that. And they were like, you're really good at this. Maybe you should do speaking on a regular. So then I put the podcast out, and that's me kind of talking about all the things that I coach people about, the conversations that I have with my clients. And the newsletter then is just kind of roundup of all the things that I do. So it just, again, it gives people a focused kind of direction and help in terms of improving their performance and stuff. Because one of the things that I tell people is not to get distracted. So I was like, well, I better produce a newsletter which has all the important things in it so they don't have to be distracted. So when they have the window of time where they're going to check their email, which I've told them to create in their diary, they can actually get that email, and then everything's in there. So it's got the best thing out of the Instagram for the week. It's got a link to the blog, which again is just all conversations I've had with clients, prospective clients, people that I've spoken to. It's all about the conversations I've had with clients and other people who are not clients, who are asking my advice and talking to me. It's just about the conversations that I'm having, where people are saying, like, how do I do this better? Like, how do I get better? How do I feel less overwhelmed? How do I feel less stressed? Like, how can I be a better human being? How can I be happier, healthier? And ultimately, how can I not necessarily live longer, but how can I have a better quality of life as I get older? Because I think that's what everybody wants. You don't want to live necessarily to be 200. You want to live to like 90, but feel really good at 90. And like, how do you do that?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the goal, isn't it?
Yeah.
long life sounds great, but if you haven't got the quality of life, then it's useless.
Exactly. And I think we can do a lot now to kind of make sure that we don't end up in that kind of sitting in the window, looking out on the world going by and just kind of waiting to fall into a grave, really. So sounds quite extreme, but I think that's what everyone wants to avoid.
100%. So do you want to just share the links of those blogs and, you know, your podcast?
Yeah. So everything's on the website. Yeah. So if you go to thewonderclinic.co.uk, that's got blogs. It's got a link to the podcasts as well. You can find the podcast on Apple and Spotify. And obviously I'm on Instagram. I'm at Stevie's Wonder Clinic on there. And you can sign up to the newsletter. So if you check out the links in the Instagram bio, there's a link to the scorecard, and that signs you up to the newsletter. And that can also help you just get a starting point for anything that's not maybe going quite right. So you can get some free tips and advice on there as well. And then obviously the newsletter comes out every Monday, just with a kind of roundup of everything that I've done during the week and all the conversations that I've had. And that goes out pretty much every Monday. And the podcast is out Pretty much every Friday.
Cool. Yep. Well, I've just got to say I did that scorecard, and yeah.
What do you think?
I did it all right. I did okay. Yeah. I got in the 80s, so I was.
I think you did very well. I looked at your results and I thought you did very well, and you don't need my help, so you're fine.
Well, I'm this podcast, like it. I think it makes me, because I listen to a lot of lifestyle podcasts from sporting interests right the way through to health and fitness and diet and all that sort of thing. And I think over the last couple of years since I got into it, it's really, because I'm not one to sit down and really read books and stuff, but listening to people talk, and you just go down all these different rabbit holes and find different people. And I think it's really, really helped me. So my lifestyle over the last 2 years has changed dramatically.
Yeah, that's the thing, is there's no, like, the other thing is people are like, oh, teach me how to do that. I'm like, but the formula that works for me doesn't work for you. What works is for me to teach you how to find out what works for yourself, and that's really important. And I think the more people that you speak to and the more open-minded you can be, and at the end of the day, just the more conversations you can have. Like, I'm always learning, and the moment I learn something new, I share it with everybody, because
100%,
and you will find what works for you. It's like when we talk about the nutrition stuff, and we do a lot of that because people are so overwhelmed with it. And I'm like, it's not difficult, but people are afraid to make it simple. And I'm like, just go and do what works for you, and just here's some ground rules. And like, it's quite easy. And even as athletes, it's quite easy. It's not difficult. We just make it complicated.
We do. Yeah, absolutely. Keep it simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's a great place to land it. Thank you ever so much for coming on. It's been such a pleasure to have a chat and meet you in face to face. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me on, Richard.
Well, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Stevie for coming on and making my life so much easier. And yeah, it does make my life easier when we've got guests that come on and just tell the story so eloquently as Stevie did. So thank you once again for sparing the time, Stevie. And if you'd like to check out Stevie's podcast and her website, we'll put the details in the show notes, and go and give her a listen. I'm sure you'll learn lots and lots. So that's about it for this episode. Thank you once again for taking the time out to listen. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I hope Stevie's inspired you. And if you'd like to get in touch, you can drop us an email at agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com. And if you'd like to come on the show, you can send us an email about that, or you can DM us on all the social medias, which include Instagram at amp_1967 and Facebook at ampgb and Twitter at Age Group Multisport Podcast. And you can find all the previous episodes on our website, which is agegroupmultisportpodcast.buzzsprout.com. They're all up there, and we have our own YouTube channel. Although I've been a bit lax the last few episodes, I've not got round to putting those on yet, but all the others are on there, and that is YouTube, and it's AmpGB, so you can catch all the episodes on there also. And that's about it. So thank you once again, and don't forget, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.